Ellen Hayakawa is the author of The Inspired Organization, Spirituality and Energy at Work. She's also co-author with Neil Donald Walsh, Carolyn Mace, John Gray, Thich Nhat Hanh, Bruce Lipton, Amazon bestseller and best inspirational spiritual book of the year, Healing the Heart of the World, Harnessing the Power of Intention to Change Your Life and Your Planet. Ellen has brought the message that ultimate fulfillment comes when you follow your intuition and spiritual gifts to fully live your life purpose and divine destiny. She's brought this to millions of people via the media. She's spoken on stages and telesummits around the world with other teachers such as Deepak Chopra, Matthew Fox, Marcy Shimoff, and Janet Bray Atwood. Ellen is also the founder of the program, The Divinely Inspired Leaders, From Passionate Purpose to Abundant Prosperity, where she trains, coaches, and mentors clients to live their passionate purpose by using their heart and intuition to create and do the work that they love and are truly meant to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Ellen Hayakawa.
All right, testing this. Can everybody hear? Okay. And I actually think I'm going to move this a little further over. Thank you so much. So first of all, I want to thank you, Bruce, for inviting me to spend the day with all of you in the Unity community. And I want to thank Jennifer and Rebecca for the support that you've given me over the last few weeks. I want to thank each and every one of you for answering your call within you to come here this morning and to fulfill your divine destiny. As I was coming over, I live on a little island called Nechleleham, which means the fast drumming ground, in the traditional territories of the Coast Salish, and in this time it's known as Bowen Island. And as I was coming over in the morning on the ferry, just looking at the sparkling water and the mountains, I just thought, wow, what a beautiful morning. And at the same time, as each of you know, I was also looking at the smoke hanging in the air, the red sun coming through that hazy sky. And it's not only here, but in other places on the planet. I heard this morning about the floods in India, the drought in Australia. There's political chaos, an economic crisis. And I don't know about you, but I know that I certainly feel unsettled about it at times. And I ask myself, and you may be asking yourself the same question, what is this time really about? What is this time really about? And I think it best summarized by a story. So, a yogini walked into a raw foods, vegan, and it was small, Zen pizza parlor. And she said to the owner, please, make me one with everything. And the owner gave her her pizza, that magic pizza that would make her one with everything. And she handed the owner a $20 bill. And the owner put the bill in her pocket. And the yogini, after a few seconds, said, don't I get any change? And the owner said, change comes from within. So that's what maybe this time is about. these massive changes, the turmoil, the chaos on the outside of us, what is that really calling up? It's calling up what I call the darkness within, bringing that darkness to light. And when I say darkness, I mean each of our own limiting beliefs, our fears, bringing that all to the light at this time of this great awakening on the planet that we heard a little bit about this morning. And what is the one answer to all of this turmoil, all of this chaos, all of the darkness? So I'll give you a clue. One word, 5 letters. And it's fine, I know we're in church, but you can call it out. Grace. Wow, lots more than I ever thought about even. Yes, and love. Love. 4 letters, that's why. All right, well, there you go. I always thought, well, I wonder what's going to come out of my mouth this morning. so now I know why. Thank you. So all of those, light and grace and love, which Reverend Bruce spoke about so beautifully in last week's talk. Now, what I'm going to ask you to consider is if love is the answer, then is part of loving yourself fulfilling your full divine destiny and your life purpose on this planet at this time. So how many of you feel like you're fully fulfilling your life purpose and your divine destiny? Yay. And how many of you feel like you could do something more? Aha! And how many of you feel like you don't even really know what your life purpose is? Or you can't imagine what that feels like to really live your life purpose? All right. Well, what I see in front of me are incredible, beautiful, divine, and human beings, magnificent beings of light and love. And I invite you to look around this room and see each person is unique. Unique, they have their own unique gifts and talents and their own unique life purpose. And you have yours. You have yours. And what I'm going to do this morning is to share a part of my personal story with you and to really offer you some of what I feel are the gems of having explored this question over the last almost 25 years of, what is it to fulfill your life purpose? What is it to fulfill your divine destiny? And we know that some of the greatest insights and realizations come when we share our stories. And with some of the indigenous elders, that's where Bruce and I met. It was a Peruvian elder who came here. I think she was 93 years old. Amazing, amazing woman. And so in indigenous traditions, they talk about, we share our stories. In Hawaii, they say, we talk story. And so as I'm sharing my story, because it's not about me, our human stories create this wonderful universal fabric and context. And so I invite you to reflect on your own story, and how my story might help you in terms of providing you with some insights to go to the next level of your life. So my story starts out when I was a child, and I just loved anything spiritual. And it might have been because when I was very young, I came down in the morning, and I said to my family, last night I saw an angel. And my mother said, well, what did the angel look like? And what did you do? And I said, well, I looked at the angel and then I went to sleep. I mean, what would you do if an angel landed beside your head on your bed? And then again, when I was young, very young, 8, 9, 10 years old, I just fell in love with the wild creatures of the earth. So I was circulating a petition in my classroom, asking everybody to sign it, save the baby seals. And I knew that you didn't need a stamp to send that petition to your member of parliament. And that love of the earth really grew. And as a teenager, my first camping trip was a trip from Highway 11 to James Bay in Ontario. I had never been in a canoe before. I had never slept in a tent or a sleeping bag, but it was a 300-kilometer canoe trip. And that really ignited something in me about this passion that I have for the earth. So it seemed very natural to me to go into wildlife biology because it was connected with the wild things, it's connected to the earth. And I wanted to do something in service of the earth because I was very aware that, you know, we're doing things to the earth that are really not so great. And so I went into wildlife biology. And after about a decade, and it was really a wonderful job to have, but after a decade, I just started feeling really down. I could barely drag myself out of bed in the morning. I was depressed, deeply depressed. And I didn't know it because nobody had talked to me about depression. So I had no idea. And I didn't really know what to do. I knew that I didn't have a passion for biology. Truthfully, I had chosen it because it felt like it was one of the boxes that was actually presented to me when I was going to school. Here are the boxes you can fit yourself into. You could be a doctor or a nurse or this or this or this. And so I just really fit myself into one of the boxes because that's what I thought my options were. So I went on. So how many of you have ever experienced that? Continuing to do something even though you don't have the joy or the passion around it any longer? Yes, I think we've all experienced something like that. Until one day, a colleague of mine took me out to lunch and said, Ellen, you have so many gifts and talents and you're never going to use them in this work. And you're never going to use them in the job that you're in. And I felt overwhelmed. There were lots of things, wow, she'd spoken the truth that I was in denial of, so there was a part of me, I don't want to hear that. And there was another part of me that felt very blessed because obviously she saw my gifts when in fact I couldn't even see my own at that time. I was so down in the dumps. And so really, she was a messenger of the divine. She was a messenger of God, coming to say, think about, what your next steps might be. So I committed. I set an intention and commitment to discover my life purpose and to live it. Then I didn't know what that meant. Fast forward a number of months, and it was the night of my 35th birthday. And we were skiing into a cross-country ski hut in Quebec. And so we skied across these beautiful snow-covered lakes under this brilliant moon, got there pretty late at night, cranked up the wood stove, put on the hot chocolate and the tea, and went to bed. And in the night, I had a dream. And I dreamed that I was inside the light, I was outside the light, and I was the light. And it wasn't really just the dream, I can describe it, but it was the feeling of really being united with God, with the universe, and all that there is. and the great expanse of love that there is for all of us, for you, for me, for all of us, that's there for us if we open to it, if we're willing to receive. And I didn't really even know what I'd experienced. I had to read about it later on in my journey, and I realized that it was a mystical dream. And in the Eastern tradition, it would be called a full Kundalini awakening. So it was a wake-up call, a wake-up call. And people liken it to a near-death experience, an NDE. And often what happens for people who have an awakening of that kind, and I know you've experienced awakenings as well in your lives. So what happens are your psychic and intuitive gifts really start to open up. And I heard these words. You are to bring the words spirit and spirituality into the consciousness of people in mainstream workplaces. Someone talking to me? Are you talking to me? You must have the wrong person. I'm a wildlife biologist with the Canadian Wildlife Service. I don't know how to bring the word spirit and spirituality into the consciousness of people in mainstream workplaces. Must have dialed the wrong number there. And I heard these words following. You don't have to know how. I will show you the way. You don't have to know how. I will show you the way. Well, I didn't really know what that meant either. I didn't know a lot of what it meant, really. But it got me started, and I was thinking, well, I was doing a Master's in Business Administration program part-time. And I thought, wow, I have to do this term paper. I'm going to do my paper on spirituality at work, because I don't know what it is. I don't know what spirituality at work is, but maybe by doing this paper, I might kind of figure out what God has, what God thinks spirituality at work might be. And I went to the professor and I said to him, and I was really excited, I would love to do my term paper on spirituality at work. And he had big eyes and he just stepped back and he said, I think you're going to have trouble with me because I'm not a religious person. And I thought in that moment, and then I just said, well, but what I'm interested in is spirituality that goes beyond all cultures, all borders, all religions, space, and time. And besides that, leaders can't go where other people have gone before. And that was the first moment where I had a feeling of that was, my voice was used. But the words that I spoke didn't really seem to be my words. But the impact of the words on that professor was that in that moment, although he had been in that first moment really against the whole idea, he'd made that perfectly clear, he kind of just did this, turnaround. And he said, yes, when you're pioneering a field, you need to write and speak about what you know. So he became a huge supporter. And simultaneously, I had been headhunted out of my job as a wildlife biologist. And I went to work for a new manager. And I'd spoken to him a little bit. I was kind of testing the waters about spirituality at work. And he said, no, this department is not ready for that. But maybe you can keep your ideas in your back pocket. Well, I now had the paper on spirituality at work. So I said, here's a paper that I wrote. And he took it home with him. And then the very next morning he said, come to my office. And I went down and he said, I really like this idea. I think you should design a workshop for employees on spirituality at work. This is the federal government. I walked back down the hall, closed the door, and I said, God, what's a workshop? Because you have to remember, I'd spent my time as a wildlife biologist hiding away in bird blinds in the Arctic, looking at birds, watching the beluga whales. So I sat down at the keyboard. Okay, God, what's a workshop and what do you want in it? Within 20 minutes, that workshop was designed. I showed it to my manager, and he said, you know what? I think we should get my manager to look at it. We took that workshop to his manager, and she said, I think we should have my manager look at it. Her manager was the assistant deputy minister of the department. We went to the assistant deputy minister. He said, I think we should have my manager look at it. His manager was the deputy minister of the Department of the Environment. Now God's idea was at the highest levels of government, of the bureaucracy. And then simultaneously, the assistant deputy minister said, why don't you give a talk at dinner next week? All the senior managers are coming from across the country next week, so you could give this talk at dinner. Who? Me? And so there was one senior manager who said to me, you know what, I would love to support you in this proposal. So she said, why don't you come to my office? And so I went to her office, and as soon as I sat down, she said to me, I really want you to be successful in that room. So you're not going to use the word spirituality, are you? And I was really puzzled. I was kind of confused because it was very clear on the proposal. And she said, can't you use the word values? And I thought for a moment, and I went over the words in my head. You are to bring the word spirit and spirituality into the consciousness of people in mainstream workplaces. And I looked at her and I said, no, I need to use the word spirituality because it embraces values, but it goes beyond values. We're talking about the expression, the full expression of the human spirit and soul at work. People giving their creative gifts and talents, making what's a meaningful contribution to the organization, but also for themselves and for others. And so she said, well, I really want you to be successful, and I just highly doubt that my colleagues are going to go for that. But it's your decision. You decide, and I wish you all the best. Went back down to my office, shut the door, started crying. I felt overwhelmed. Was I wrong? Was I confused? Should I use the word spirituality? She's a senior manager. She knows her colleagues. I've never met them. I don't know. I'm too young to do this. Most people were many decades, in some cases, older than me. I'm too young to do it. I can't do it. On and on and on. And then all of a sudden, a book fell off of my bookshelf, fell open on the floor. I went and I got it. I picked it up. And I was studying A Course in Miracles at that time. And this was an accompaniment. It was a workbook to A Course in Miracles. And so I picked it up. And do you know what it said? You're never given more than you can handle. You're never given more than you can handle. And so I gave the talk the next week. I used the word spirituality. And not only did they approve of the proposal for workshops for employees, but they wanted to do the workshop themselves. They wanted to experience it for themselves. So it was remarkable. And the divine, that wasn't the end of it. This whole, it was like God's mission of wanting spirit and spirituality at work to become mainstream. There was another plan so that it would go outside of the government. And I was invited to speak on radio to 2.5 million adults on spirituality at work. And then I saw it appearing in human resources managers' journals and in media articles. And I was invited to keynote around the world just speaking about spirituality at work. So then another set of words came, which was Ellen and team to bring together 2001 leaders in business, politics, science, government, health, education, the arts, and all the leaders from all the major spiritual traditions from around the world. What? Another one of those, what? That's impossible. Why are you asking me? No, we're not asking you. We're asking a team. And so there were many wonderful people called to that team, and some of them are here in this room. And so Maureen Jacques-Lacroix, I would really like to honor you because you were a key, a pillar. And so that Global Peace Summit happened in 2001. People resisted the name. No, you shouldn't call it spirituality. That was the one thing that was kind of unbendable. It was just guidance that I'd received. Do not change that word spirituality. I'm trying to do a job here. Because God sometimes thinks that. I'm trying to do a job. Why are you confusing things? So the summit happened, the 2001 Summit on Spirituality and Sustainability. And partnerships were pulled together. And I'm sure some of you in this room also participated, and I see other people here who were part of it. And they estimated that over 4,000 people attended that particular event. Since then, there have been, and the one thing I want to add is that God knows the timing. That vision came about 4 years before the event ever happened. But the event was just after September 11th. 2001, when the Twin Towers fell. And it was, some of the guidance I received was that if a group of people stood for peace in the world, there will be global peace. There will be global peace. And it is all connected to the inner peace that we have and that we have collectively in a community such as this, the Unity community, a model of that. And so I know that I promised to share also the gems that I've learned. So the first thing is that I want to say that living these divine dreams, receiving these divine dreams and living them has not been easy. I will say that I've gone to the greatest depths, the greatest heights, and emotionally I've gone pretty much everywhere, and I'm thankful for that. So I'm not a person to say that, once you start trying to live, because I think we're all, I'm still trying to fully live my life purpose and my destiny. But I think that it takes us to all of these places that we have to know, those places of dark and the light, because what it's given me is far greater compassion and empathy and being able to really receive love and to give love in a completely different way. So I embrace all of it. The gems that I'd like to share with you, just so that if it makes your journey any easier, gives you a shortcut, I would love that. So the first one that I learned is God is a joker. And so it's our own human response to say, are you joking? You're asking me to do that? Do you know who you're asking or what you're doing? And what I learned was that through living these dreams, that we learn about radical trust, faith, surrender, deeper love, compassion. We can look back and we can say, okay, God was not joking, really. The joke's on me. And I think it was Robert Frost who said something like, God, forgive me for my little jokes on thee, and I'll forgive you for your big joke on me. The other one is that, another gem is that it doesn't matter who you think you are. It doesn't matter to God who you think you are. My ego was identified with being a wildlife biologist. And I had age identification. I'm too young to do this. Sometimes we're saying, I'm too old to do this. Now I'm saying, I'm too old to do this. But God doesn't have that. God knows the unique gifts and talents that were given to you and will give you a dream that absolutely fits that. And through living that dream, you'll find more of your gifts. You have to give your gifts away in order to really open and receive more. So at this moment, I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes. And focusing on your breath. And just taking a few gentle breaths. And asking yourself the question, am I committed to using my gifts and talents in service to fulfill my life purpose? Am I committed to using my gifts and talents in full service to fulfill my life purpose? All right, whatever your answer is to that question, I invite you to open your eyes. And if you are committed, I'm going to invite you to say out loud. And the reason to say it out loud is to hear yourself saying it. It's very powerful to hear yourself saying what I'm about to tell you, what I'm about to say, and it's very powerful for God, for the universe, for the goddess, for the one of 1,000 names to hear you saying this. I'm fully committed to using my gifts to fulfill my life purpose. I'm committed to using my gifts. Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. So the other one that I really learned was you don't have to know how. God will show you the way. And as you heard, that you're never given more than you can handle. And that on many a day keeps me going. You're never given more than you can handle. And having those words in your mind, in your ears, in your heart often helps when you're having a really not great day. And then the other thing is to really be prepared for miracles. Be prepared for the divine to line up people and events and situations that help you with this seemingly impossible dream. Because if you open yourself to that, each of you can be a conduit for the miracles that are needed on this planet at this time. Because some days that's kind of what it looks like. We need miracles, and the miracles are there. So before I conclude, what I'd like to talk about is who the workshop this afternoon is for. So you're all invited to this workshop, which is on the 5-step blueprint for creating the joyful, juicy, divinely inspired work you love. And so it's for you if you feel like you're not using all your gifts and talents in the work that you do. And I really define work, broad definition of work. Some of you may be looking after children or parents. It's not necessarily paid work. And it's also for you if you feel like you're not fully living your purpose and your mission, whether you haven't started or you just feel like you're not living it fully and you want to do that. And it's also for you if, for example, you're a holistic practitioner of any kind and you're passionate about what you do, but you feel that you could impact more people. And it's also for you if you don't fit any of those categories. I'm not a person who likes people to just fit categories. But if you feel in your heart and your intuition is calling you to be there, then come to the workshop. You're all welcome. And we'll be going through the top 3 major myths that keep people doing work that they don't truly love. And you'll get the 5-step blueprint. It's a simple blueprint. It's what I've used, it's what my clients used. And you'll also get an opportunity I'm not going to say what it is now, but you're going to get an incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, is what I would call it, to really be living your full divine destiny. So in closing, what I'd like to say, and it's really the way that I started, I see a whole room full of magnificent, beautiful, divine beings of love and light with many gifts and talents. And God loves you. You can't do anything to make God love you more or God love you less. God loves you for who you are, for your being. And it's your time to shine your love and your light and your truth and your hearts, and give your gifts to fully live your life purpose and your divine destiny. Thank you.